Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I am AA Ron, and this is the Inclusive Dad Podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Today, my guest is Becca Boston. Hi, Becca. How are you?
Hello, I'm good and blessed to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Well, let's start off. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is, like I said, Becca Boston, not from Boston. I was born and raised outside of Philly, and now live here in Tacoma, Washington. So made that move all the way across the country in 2016. But I grew up knowing that being different makes a difference, as I was diagnosed with a learning disability, specifically dyslexia and an auditory processing disorder, at a very young age when the information was just barely starting to get out there. So lived a lot within that, but today I see my learning disability as a superpower, as it's taught me a wide variety of important life lessons. And I also am a mental health advocate, as I did go through a domestic violence relationship that I hid behind a smile for far too long. But eventually I chose my heart and stepped out into the war of recovery, which is an ongoing process because recovery never ends.
Right.
But have created a greater version of myself here in the Pacific Northwest. And today I'm a inspirational speaker, as many people would say, a speaker, two-time best-selling author, and I also am the Ending the Silence coordinator for NAMI Pierce County.
Awesome. That's a lot of good stuff. We have a
Yeah.
lot of, I didn't know all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm in this space because my daughter was diagnosed with disabilities early on. So, navigated that all the school process. And then also, I worked at a residential treatment facility for adolescents, mental health inpatient for a couple of years. So I have that experience as well. So awesome. Great to have you on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So each of us is unique and has our own set of beliefs, values, and experiences that shape who we are. I ask each of my guests, what is your definition of inclusion? And this is what you sent in. Coming together to support, embrace, and bring awareness to people's lives, allowing people's stories to be told and for people to be seen for who they are. I love that. Do you have
Yeah.
anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about like allowing everybody's different lived experience to be seen and valued, like I said, and respected, I think is a big one too.
Right.
And really linking arms to be able to learn from each other, because each of us have a unique fingerprint that is left to make an imprint in this world. And we shouldn't be allowing somebody's, you know, disability to define who they are. I think if anything, like a disability, really gives somebody the ability to speak up and make a further impact. But I think in order to do that, we need to continue to have respect and have empathy and just link arms so that we can be able to advocate alongside one another. And obviously, it goes just outside of disabilities, but specifically speaking on that, since we have that as a common denominator here. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and for me, I mean, inclusion is kind of my global message. I mean, obviously, I talk about it mostly in relationship to disability because of my daughter, but I mean,
yeah.
I my belief is I can't fight for inclusion for her while excluding other people for something else. So for me, I mean, inclusion of everybody. You can't. I mean, I can't say, hey, let's include all people with disabilities, but this other thing I don't want to include. So for me, it's like you said, it's inclusion globally for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious, has that kind of always been your definition? Has it changed over time?
I mean, I would say that I'm somebody who has always been relatively pretty inclusive, seeing people for their heart and their character. I would definitely say I became even a bigger advocate for it when I was a caregiver for individuals with intellectual and developmental
Okay.
disabilities. And yeah, just supporting like Black Lives Matters as well too. So I think it's something always that has been a part of me, but has really come to life in the past several years.
Sure. Awesome. So in relationship, you said you were diagnosed with dyslexia and learning disability. Did you, or what was the other one? Sorry.
Uh, Dyslexia and auditory processing disorder.
Okay. So did you have an IEP when you were in school?
Yeah.
How was that process for you as somebody with the IEP going through school?
For me, I actually felt very supportive. So, like I said, I was
Awesome.
diagnosed at a young age, and then I went to 2 schools for kids with learning disabilities. So, I was
Okay.
blessed to be around teachers who knew how to work with my IEP. And then during my junior and senior year of high school, I actually transitioned back to my public high school so I could get the
Okay.
experience of needing to advocate for myself even stronger. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Was that something that you asked to come back to the high school, or how did that process work? Whose decision kind of was it to do that?
Yeah, it was my decision. I
Awesome.
recognized that after college was going to come, or after high school was going to come college,
Right.
and in college they don't necessarily have to follow your
Right.
IEP.
Yep.
But wanting to be able to advocate for myself and even kind of get some experience of being taught by teachers who don't necessarily know all of the in and the outs of having a learning disability. So I made the decision, and my parents were incredibly supportive of that. So,
Sure. Awesome. I love that. So yeah, I'm my mindset on inclusion is I'm for full inclusion, so that means like being in the regular school and that kind of stuff. So I'm interested, since you had that experience, not being in like the regulars. I'm it's not a good term, regular school, but the school, you know what I'm talking about.
yeah, the public
I mean, yeah, public school. There you go. That's a better word. In a public school, do you think? Um, I mean, you obviously didn't go to the public school when you were younger, so it's hard to compare. But do you think you were? What I guess what do you think were the advantages of going the route where you went, where you weren't in public school but in like another school? Do you think what advantage do you think that had for you?
Yeah, so I did go to public school from pre-K to fourth grade. So I
Okay,
did have some experience
sure,
in it, and I think the big thing for me was being able to be around other people with other learning disabilities. It
sure,
was being able to see that other people like have the same challenges as me,
sure. Yep,
or different challenges. We all have different strengths and
yep.
weaknesses. So.
That's awesome. No, it's a great perspective. I love that. Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. That's great. Let's see. So you talked a little bit about empathy, like we shared before we started recording. My second TEDx talk, the first one was about inclusion. My second one it was I kind of messaging now is using inclusion, or sorry, using empathy to help include people with disabilities. For a lot of my journey with my daughter, I mean, I'm good at researching stuff, finding the laws, and then you bring it to the school. Hey, this is the law. In my mind, this is the law. They're going to follow it. Well, that's not how it works. I mean, just because that's the law and this is my interpretation doesn't mean the school's going to, read it the same way and just implement what I want. So I found myself sometimes getting, upset or angry that they weren't following it that way, and it would kind of mentally, it would kind of help make me kind of spiral. So now I took a step back and I'm like, no, that's not a good way to look at it, Aaron. You need to take personal responsibility for the stuff you have control over. So what is that? And one of those things I feel is like empathy. Like I can be empathetic with people with disabilities. I can talk to them, ask them, okay, how do you want me to treat you? I mean, what's something I can do to, help you make this world more inclusive? So you spoke a little bit about, being empathetic, using empathy. Like, can you go into more depth on how we can use empathy to be more inclusive?
Yeah. I think I think empathy for me, it's having that um intentional active listening ear and being able to understand where somebody's coming from. And at times kind of like what you're saying is like sometimes we don't know what somebody else is going through, or we don't know what that law or that rule is um that they need to follow. And sometimes
Right.
it's that hardship of like having to ask the right questions of like, okay, well, why is it that, you know, this can't happen or that can't happen, et cetera, et cetera. But also it can be hard to be in that space, especially when you have an emotional attachment to the person that you're advocating for.
Right.
So being able to just like, yeah, channel in that patience and that kindness for other people, because we never know, why certain things are in place.
Right.
And each and every single one of us deserve kindness and respect. And that can be done by just us slowing down and taking some deep breaths at the time.
Right. For sure. Yeah, you mentioned the word emotion in there. It is very, man, that's another piece, like from the parent side. It's
Yeah.
just, you're in meetings, and I mean, if I'm there with my daughter, or we're talking about my daughter, I mean, it's very emotional. It's about her. So it's hard as a parent to, put aside the emotions to be able to just focus on, okay, this is the issue. Let's work on it. What's best for her, that part of it. So that is a huge piece of it, the emotion part. I know you said you're a two-time bestseller. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Awesome. And I showed you this, but I have a signed copy of this book, The Story Behind the Smile. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that book and what it's about?
Yeah. So the story behind the smile, lessons within my life, takes you on a journey of my life from being diagnosed with a learning disability to hiding a domestic violence relationship, to choosing my heart and stepping out into the war of recovery and creating a greater version of myself to who I am today. And at the end of each chapter, I share the lessons that I learned within that certain aspect of my life, and then provide the reader with thought-provoking questions, so that they are able to hopefully create change within their life, or just reflect in different areas of their life. So that's kind of the journey it takes you on.
That's awesome. What's the other book?
The other book is called Activated. I wrote a chapter
Okay.
in this compilation book. So that was my like entry to being
Sure.
an author. And then after that, I was like, I got to do my own thing.
There you go. There you go. Then I've seen on social media that you're coming out with a workbook, caregiving workbook. Can you talk a little bit about that and how people can find that?
Yeah. So, not too long ago, in February of 2024, after being in the caregiving world for 6 years, I quit and moved to here in Tacoma, Washington. And one thing that I am now passionate about is helping caregivers burn the burnouts, so that they can continue to show up for their loved one or work in a field that they love. While also making themselves a priority. It's something that I felt like I was never taught while in the
Right.
caregiving world. And we need to be caring for our caregivers, and the
Yep.
caregivers need to be caring for themselves. So I take individuals through how to change the narrative in their minds, discover 6 aspects of self-care, and how to create healthy boundaries. So it is going to be a workbook as well as a speaking engagement and eventually an online course. So you
That's
can just
awesome.
reach out on my social medias, and the link will be most likely be in the bio.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're right. I mean, caregiving that's a huge thing. I mean, my daughter she requires 24/7 care. So I mean, as a parent, you just step in and do what you have to, but you kind of have to remember, like, I need to take a break. Like, it's okay to me for me to lay down for a few minutes or watch TV just to get disengaged. I mean, it's hard to do that because you want to be on all the time, but you have to take care of yourself, otherwise you burn out and it's not good for anybody.
Hmm.
But yeah, for sure. And also, so I mean, did you experience burnout yourself then when you were a caregiver?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely have moments of remembering, especially when I was a CNA, being like, why are my 2 days just used for one, recovering from the week, and then the next week trying
Yeah.
to rest for preparing for my next week. But I also worked throughout COVID. So when the
Yeah.
world shut down, I had to
Yeah.
continue to show up. And it's honestly during that time that I really learned how to start prioritizing myself, because
Right.
I think there were some weeks that I did probably like 80 hours, and
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. The money's nice, but I'd like my
Right.
sanity more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've definitely experienced that.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's like I told you, I worked at a residential treatment facility for youth, and I worked there over COVID also. And it's one of those fields where, I mean, it's hard to find enough people to cover all the shifts. So if you want to work the hours, they'll let you work. And all of a sudden, 60 to 80 hours. Like, oh my goodness, like literally wake up, work 16 hours straight, go back to sleep, do it over again the next day, and then after a while, you're like, whoa, this is not. I'm
Yeah.
kind of tired, and I'm not able to just let stuff roll off my back like I used to earlier in the week. And yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, your one day is like sleeping, and the next day is laundry, and then you're back at it again.
But I think it's yeah, and I think now in my life too, it's like, okay, acknowledging that rest is productive. So it's like it's okay to
Yeah,
have those
for sure.
weekends, but
Yeah,
at the same
for
time,
sure.
it's gonna be like consuming
Yep.
your whole life. So it's a weird, I don't think there's ever actual balance between it.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's for sure. And I'm actually finally I mean, we're talking the last 6 months more where I have my inclusive dad business where I help families navigate special education process, plus a couple other jobs bringing in money. But I have it set up, trying to set up more where I have open spaces in my day where I can be flexible. So, I'm used to being on working all the time. And now I'm trying to have spots where, like, okay, I get up, do something. I'm tired. I mean, I can like go for a walk. I can lay down and take a nap. And it makes a big difference when you have spots or you take that time for yourself. But at first, you feel guilty though. Like, did you feel guilty when you tried to
Oh
start prioritizing like self care?
oh yeah. I me and there was the guilt and me recognizing that like I don't always have to explain my no.
That
My no
that
can be
that
a
part
no.
too. Yep.
And that irritates the heck out of other people too.
Yep.
So it's like all of these emotions that come along when you begin
Right.
prioritizing yourself. And I don't know, I like in some ways I'd like to experience it as a parent because it's like mine's with, coworkers. I have the ability to shut that off.
Right. It's
And
true.
as a parent, I mean, respect to you guys, where
Yeah.
you in some way, shape, or form, you're always on,
Right.
um, but still being able to find those areas, and that's why I love what you do with that, allowing your day to kind of be fluid in those areas, because that could be the time where you put your phone on do not disturb or like
Yep.
yeah. So that is the one area that I'm like, I wonder what it's fully like. I'm an
Right.
incredible aunt, but I don't know if I can do my own kids.
Right.
So
Yeah, no, it's for sure. Like, I mean, I now with my girlfriend when my daughter comes over. I mean, I'm her parent, so I try to do most of it. But there's definitely times like I need like okay, I just need to go outside, go for a walk, or I need to lay down for a few minutes because here, can you take over? And it's okay to not be able to do it all yourself too. I don't know if it's a dad thing, a guy thing, or just a human thing where you kind of want to do it yourself. You don't want to ask for help, or at least me. So just at least recognizing like, hey, I'm tired. I
yeah.
need a break now so I can, continue helping after that. So it's interesting.
Yeah,
But
that's
for
huge. I mean, I always say that your strength is giving your pain a voice and receiving that help
right,
that's needed. So I think that's amazing. And yeah,
yeah. So when your caregiving role, I mean, did you see any times where like your clients were excluded, or where if you took them out in public, like people would act surprised that they were out in public, or treat them poorly, or not like we want them to be treated, anything like that?
I think the one that really um, stuck in my head is I worked with an individual who was nonverbal, and his
Mhm.
way to express his happiness was through kind of making loud, like squealing sounds.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and it took me a very long time to recognize those, but we went to the movies, and it was always hit or miss with the movies. It could either be too overstimulating or just what he needed. And
right.
this movie was one, I don't remember what movie it was, but it was one that he
You let
loved.
sure. Yep.
So it was almost constant squealing,
Sure.
which
Yep.
made me really happy, but
Yep.
somebody else in the movie theater
Yep.
very upset.
Right.
And I remember standing up at the movie theater and saying, "If this bothers you, you can get the F out because he's happy and having a good time and enjoying it, and we ain't leaving."
Right.
So it sounds like
Right.
a you problem.
Right.
So that was definitely one. I think otherwise than that, I don't have. I mean, we've always gotten some looks, but I'm
Right.
always just one to be living in the moment. I think the weirdest thing was getting people saying, like, "I'm the special one," and it's like, why are we trying to put people on a
Yeah.
pedestal? But yeah, the movie theater is definitely the biggest one that always sticks out.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, I mean, something that's come up with me more than once is where we have like my daughter out in public, and it's like, oh, it's so good that you bring your daughter out, and I'm like, I I bring my son out. Like, I don't. Why are you saying it's cool that I bring her out? Like, is she not supposed to come out of the house? Like, I don't understand. So that's happened multiple times, and I'm always like, what is? I mean, I don't even understand what you're saying. Like,
Right.
it's
I
like, what?
never understand people's mindset like that. Like,
Yeah,
how are we gonna lock somebody up and
right.
not allow them to
Yeah,
explore the outside world?
yeah. But I mean, it may. I guess maybe it kind of goes back like when I was growing up. I don't ever remember seeing anybody in a wheelchair. So maybe the fact she's in a wheelchair and being out, I guess there's not a lot of people in wheelchairs as a percentage. So it's just kind of, it's not normal. Maybe that doesn't. I don't know. I'm just, yeah.
Yeah.
It always surprised me. Like I bring her to the fair or go to the church. Like, why wouldn't I bring her? She's just my child. That's what we're
Right.
going out as a family. She's coming with us. What am I supposed to do with her? Just leave her at home by
Right.
herself? Like, what is? Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. You said that you have did stuff with Black Lives Matter. Like, do you want to talk a little bit about that, or how was that experience, and how did that shape you?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I've done, like, a whole big thing. I mean, I've always seen people for their heart and their
Sure.
character,
Yeah.
and especially around when, like, the George Floyd stuff happened back in 2020, I
Right.
really did wanna kinda go out and be a bigger voice in protest.
Yeah.
However, it was 2020 and the pandemic was happening, and
Sure.
I wasn't able to. But I
Yeah.
had a good friend at the time, who was out protesting, and I'd be his, call to come get him if things were
Something
picking up in
happened.
the
Sure.
protest, and so I was able to play a small part in that area.
Sure.
But for me, it's just always been seeing people for their heart and their character.
Yeah. That's awesome. So yeah, I'm from Minnesota, so it happened not a couple hours from where I'm at is where it happened. So not too
Wow.
far. Yep.
Wow.
Not too far. Let's see what else. What is one tip you can share to help our listeners be more inclusive today? Just something like they can tangibly do. It's not a huge thing. They don't have to go and buy something or do a class. Just what's something you can do in your day to day to be more inclusive?
Listen for the intent of understanding and not a quick response. And sometimes that means biting your tongue and shutting up until somebody finishes. But just being patient with people, because a lot of people deserve that. They deserve to be heard and to be seen, and for their story to be told. And I think by us being able to have that active listening ear, and
Sure.
getting to know a better understanding of where people come from is huge.
Sure. That's awesome. Um, what do you like to do for fun?
What do I like to do for fun? One of the big things I like to do is get out and go hiking.
Oh,
I
okay.
Uh, used to, in my young years, not like hiking at all. I used to actually want a couch on wheels with a TV that I told my mom, when we were on a family hike.
Yeah.
But today I've become an active hiker,
Sure.
um, and just spending time with my nieces is a big, big one.
That's awesome. You say in your younger years, you look like you're like 15. So couldn't have been that
Appreciate
long ago.
that. 31.
31. There you go. That. I'm 47, so that's still pretty young. You got
Okay.
a long ways yet. Have you? So you're out in the on the West Coast. Do you go up like mountains or like not like up big mountains hiking?
I mean, I'm not like using special equipment to get up,
Okay.
but they're definitely some pretty big mountains. I've definitely done some hikes that are like 8 hours round trip, um,
Okay.
and yeah, I've worked myself up to that,
Sure.
and I'm still kind of exploring what's out here in the Tacoma,
Sure.
Seattle area, but
Yeah.
I've definitely done a lot in down in Portland.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually have a cousin that lives in Seattle, so I've been there a couple times. It's beautiful out there.
Yeah.
It's very
It's
pretty.
different.
Yeah. Where did you
Yeah.
say you're from? Philadelphia or something?
Yeah, I was born outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
So it's a little, yeah, it's a little different scenery than Philadelphia,
Yep.
probably.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm from southern Minnesota, which is cornfields. So
Okay,
last September, we went out to Colorado Springs for my girlfriend's birthday and went up Pikes Peak on the Cog Railroad. So
okay.
we had just gotten out there like 24 hours before, and you're not supposed to go like super high elevations for a little while to adjust. Well, we went up this thing, got to the top, and like you got a half an hour up here to get, but then you got to come back on, or you're staying up there till the next train. Well, just like getting up there, walking from the train to like the building, we're like, we had to like stop. It's like, oh my gosh, just that was crazy. And then walking back, it took forever till we had to stop multiple times and you get back down. It's like, wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, the
But
altitude sickness.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But we had looked it up, like the altitude in Minnesota is like, I don't like, I thought like, think like 1,200 feet above sea level where we live or something. So it's not even close. So yeah, it was like, whoa, that's a lot.
Right?
But yeah, that's cool. You like to travel?
I do. I haven't done as much as I'd love to recently, but I traveled a whole bunch thanks to my dad and my growing up as a child with my family. So I've been
Awesome.
all over the East Coast, a bunch of places outside of the country. So definitely want to get back to it.
Where's like your dream trip that you haven't been yet?
I really want to go to Bali.
Okay.
I've just seen and heard so many incredible stories and just the culture there. So
That's
that is
awesome.
definitely my like on the top of my list to
Yeah,
go to. Yeah. How
that's
about you?
cool. Um, I don't have like one trip I want to do. I've been to Haiti 3 times on mission trips, and I really want to go back because I love the country. I love the simplicity of it. Just, I mean, it's really poor, which is sad, but just the fact that, I mean, we're eating chicken and rice for supper. Like, you don't have all the 50 choices of where to eat. There's something for me
Yeah.
that's kind of comforting. Like, I don't like it. It's easier with all the fewer choices, but it's not going to be anytime soon because of what's happening in the country right now and down there. But I love the going down there for that part of it. I don't like flying over water, which kind of limits. I don't. I have this weird thing about flying over water, which kind of limits going across the ocean, probably. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why, because if you crash over land or water, it's probably not going to make a difference. But something about the water, it's more whatever.
Yeah. I mean, we all have our own unique fears. That's
Right?
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, do you have anything you want to share that we haven't discussed, or anything you wanted to share?
I don't think so.
Don't think so. Awesome. Well, it's time for the secret question that I told you I was going to ask you. You ready?
All right.
Right. So I'm from Austin, Minnesota, where they make spam. So do you eat spam? Yes or no?
No.
No. Have you ever eaten spam?
Yeah.
Yes. Just didn't like it.
Yes. I'm more or less like I'm just somebody who doesn't like to cook in general.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that I'm like against it. Like it tastes good when somebody makes it for me, but I'm just not like gonna pick it up at the store and probably go make it. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So I don't have anything against it.
Yeah, yeah.
What
No.
do you think about it?
Well, I mean, I'm from Austin, so I do eat it, but like we had it. We had somebody from out of town here, so we fried some up and ate it with them. But before that, I mean, I've probably been had it for years. It's
Yeah.
kind of one of those things where I mean, when you're in the town where it's from, it's not as big of a deal as like if you're not from the town. Like there's a spam
Right.
museum here. People travel from all over the place to come see it, but
Wow.
I've been there twice since it's open, so it's one of those kind of things probably. So I will eat it, but it's not, yeah, I'm not going to the grocery store either to buy it and cook it up special. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's like one of
yeah,
those if it's there, it's there, and if
yeah,
it's included, cool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was awesome. This was great. I appreciate you being on the podcast, and I look forward to talking to you soon again.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you bringing me on.